Get off my hair.
Hold your hair. Hey everyone, welcome to our third episode from our podcast, A Little Unbalanced. Today's all about confidence. We're talking about self-love, positive affirmations, the social media, empowering other women. So our positive talk, I'm going to get us started with I am strong. I am beautiful. I am worthy. Cass.
I am enough. Right now I'm writing out, it is safe. It is safe for me to be seen. It's safe for me to make more money. It's safe for me to be surrounded by women. And those I am actually writing in my journal and then just kind of like posting up on a mirror. Yeah, just so I can see them. And then when I was younger, I went to Italy. And if you've ever gone to Italy, when you get there and if you have blonde hair, they think you are just amazing. So long blonde hair. I was quite young. So, and they would whistle and call and you'd have random, not just young men, but older men like knocking on the windows and staring in. And it was a lot when you're a young girl, right? Like it felt kind of overwhelming. So I must've been 19 or 20 at the time. So,
young woman,
maybe not that young, but yeah. So I, had got all dolled up one day. And I put on a tiny little skirt and we decided we wanted to go and do our laundry. So we're walking down through like the little tiny streets in Venice and I had my big backpack on and we're walking past these little cafes and everybody's hooting and hollering. So I'm getting like inflated sense of confidence and feeling really good. And I'm strutting my stuff and we went from one end of Venice to the other. And I had a girlfriend who wanted to hold the door open. I was at the back as we went in and she started hysterically laughing. And so that entire time that I was walking through Venice, I had my skirt tucked up under my backpack and my thong was showing. I was wearing a little blue thong that day. So in reality, I was knocked down a peg.
They were complimenting you on your nice butt though.
Yes, they were.
But you were showing it.
Yeah, so that was, an embarrassing moment where you're feeling good and then you get knocked down a bit. But it's all right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you've ever shared that with me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
I just have, and then having all brothers growing up.
Yes, I can relate.
They can knock you down a peg pretty easily. You put on, I would wear certain outfits and it's like nothing even crazy. And it would be.
Like revealing, you mean? Or?
Well, yeah, but kind of. Yeah, I remember one Halloween, obviously I was dressed a little slutty. So I was showing everything off a little bit more then. But I can't remember what I was. But yeah, and then I walked out and my one brother was like, excuse me, like, what are you wearing? And then he was telling my other brother, hey, like, look what she's wearing. Are you going to let her go out? Like they were going off of each other. So it was a lot of, having the brothers, making sure that I wasn't
too exposed.
I guess. I think they just wanted to be asses.
Yeah. So. Well, I grew up with brothers as well. And I found that it didn't matter how you showed up or what you said, they were always going to like knock you down a peg.
Yeah.
Right. And so whenever I would be feeling really confident, they would say something. And back then I would allow it to, like totally derail me. Yeah. And so I can just remember like certain instances from when I was younger. I can't even think of one. For example, my brother made fun of my birthday cake. You know what I mean? Little things like that. They would call me fat. For the longest time, they would call me fat. Yes. And so, I just grew a tough skin and I was luckily skinny back then. And then I got pregnant and they stopped calling me fat.
I had that too. My brother would always call me fat. And then he's like, you're fat when I stopped calling you fat. And yeah, there was a point where he stopped calling me fat. And I'm like, now I know.
No.
He's not saying it because he doesn't actually want to hurt my feelings. But no, I have had brothers when I was dolled up. And they would come up to me like, you look really nice. And that's like, you're messing with me. You're not being. So you don't actually think I look good.
Even when you received a compliment, you question the compliment.
Yeah.
Yes.
I still
absolutely.
We were eating. Well, speaking of confidence, we were eating some cake earlier, me and Cass, and it was just sitting on the tray, and we're just eating forks, just talking, eating this cake. And because it was from somebody else, I told her that I struggle with receiving food from somebody else that I know doesn't really like me, because then I'm always scared that they did something to it. So it's poisoned, or I don't know, just something crazy. So that was probably
intrusive thoughts.
That one's intrusive thoughts, yes. But I have had previous relationship where I was not made to feel great about myself. I was made to feel like I wasn't worthy, that no other person would date me, that I was, a burden on everybody, that nobody would miss me if something happened to me. And that was like 10 years ago, and I still struggle with that one. Probably not as much as I used to, but it's still there. It's still in the back of my head. And I bring it into this marriage when he's being very sincere, and I try really hard to believe what he's saying, right? But it's hard.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like having past relationships where you've been cheated on, or, you know what I mean? They just kind of told you that if you were to leave, there's nobody else is going to want you, right? And so as much as like logically, that that's not true, sometimes when you're in that, it's hard to see past it, right? And it does kind of like internalize. And we talked, I think, when we did our last podcast about how like you are a set of programs, and those programs are running, in the background, and sometimes they get a virus like this. So if you're with somebody who's narcissistic, or if you've gone through trauma in your life, maybe you grew up in a household where there was a lot of yelling and screaming, and you had those core wounds that opened up, or there was a lot of mental health issues, or whatever else was going on, and those core wounds that I am not enough, and I don't belong, that feeling of being rejected, in social situations because you couldn't feel safe in your environment as a child, and that sticks with you and moves forward with you. Yeah. And I think too, like jumping into kind of like middle age throws your confidence for a little bit of a loop.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Like there you get, it shifts, and it never goes to my boobs. No, well, for me, it never goes to my boobs. It goes to my butt and my thighs. And it's just funny. You have to kind of like learn to love yourself in your new body, right? And then you have to work a little harder when you're exercising.
As we were just eating cake before. Yeah.
Maybe don't let us be your role models.
But like, after you have kids, your body obviously is going to change.
Yeah.
There is some women out there that have had kids, and they, nothing really has changed for them. And genetics, it's all genetics.
Good for you.
We love you, but good for you.
Good for you. No, I do think that is something to celebrate, right? Because there's a lot of women that I know who, right after they gave birth, they put on the corset. And everything stayed. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then their hips kind of stayed where they were. I did not do that. My hips just kept going out and out. I had 3 kids. And so every time, right, my body shifted a little bit. And I think it's just giving yourself that forgiveness and that grace that it's okay to, look a little different. And usually I feel really confident. And I think you talked about this earlier where you, you take a photo and you love how you look in the screen, and then you come back to that photo later, or somebody else takes a photo, usually your husband, like a bad angle.
Yeah.
And you go back and you look at it, and you just feel like, just very, very low sometimes.
My husband, I love him, but he takes the worst photos, or he'll zoom right in. And I'm like, can you back up a little bit? He's like, what? I'm zooming in. And I'm like, no, please, zoom out a little bit. But
I used to work at a school, and the principal would take photos of all the staff, and he would post them up really big on the wall, only they would be taken about that close. And so every time I would walk past my photo, I'd go, right? But I didn't look at anybody else's photo that way. So I think like we are so critical of ourselves, but we look at each other in a different light. And you had mentioned earlier that you would never talk to me the way you I was like, what did I say? Oh my God. You would never talk to me the way you would talk to yourself, because it's usually so critical and so negative. And I think that resonates for myself, and I know a lot of other women that I've talked to. Yeah. And I think that stems from social media, hey?
But I even say that to my son,
What's
where
that?
I'm like, don't talk negative about yourself. If you wouldn't say that to somebody else, don't say it to yourself.
Mhm.
So yeah, to take that into consideration next time you start talking to yourself, you're like, would I say this to somebody else?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then reconsider, because why are you talking to yourself like that? That's not nice.
Yeah. And I think it is like our job to create that confidence in ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a hard process. And usually it gets a little gritty. But I think when you step into like creating habits where you are, you know, creating that self-talk, that positive self-talk, you know, you're meditating, you're praying, you're doing the things that you need to do
to make you feel
and fill up your cup. So whether that's exercise, like you do yoga, right?
Yeah, you flipping me off with those little fingers.
This is where the R rating comes out.
We just started pottery.
Yes.
And that knocked us down a peg. Because I think we both went in there like, we're going to be amazing.
We thought Vanessa and I would be like on the pottery, like ghost, right?
Yeah.
Creating these beautiful
beautiful things. And it's like you get like 3 inches up and it's like...
Yeah, and this lady talks fast and the process is fast. And so it just makes you feel like really slow.
But it's good. We're getting better.
Yes.
We'll show you some of our work when it's done and you can judge. And you'll be like, they're beautiful.
And there definitely is something about like the creative process and how that does build your confidence.
Yeah.
Maybe not right at the start, but reflecting on it now, like from when we started to where we're at now, it's like, okay, I can see, I feel good that I tried, as opposed to like not showing up for yourself and not trying new things because you're afraid of looking dumb or looking silly or being judged, right?
Just trying.
Yeah, just trying.
And allowing yourself have that grace that if you don't, you know, succeed within the first time, it's within the first 20 times. Give yourself that, you know, grace. But yeah, the social media aspect of it, like you were saying, there's a lot of, I think that's a lot.
Yeah. And that's like from a young age, right? Yeah. And depending on a lot, like where you grew up, we both grew up with brothers. And so there was a lot of like, kind of like hiding your true self, just putting up that wall. And then I noticed we both, and I know you well, so we both used humor a lot, and like we would, you know, egg each other on, and we would dig at each other. And I think as we're getting older, we're kind of shifting out of that. It still happens, but
we realize it's probably a trauma response that we like have to make fun of each other in order. So I don't do it as if like if I make fun of this person first, or if I like get in there first, they won't have time to come at me. So it's like a safety mechanism,
right? You're putting that wall up. And I feel like as I get older, it's harder and harder for me to do that, I guess. I want to be more real and more authentic. And I think that is a part of like really showing your true self. That takes a lot of confidence, and it's not always perfect. It's not always easy.
Is it on?
It's on. Yeah, okay. You're good. Yeah. And I think, you know, like social media has all these filters, and I have a daughter, and I think my message for her is like, wear makeup so that you feel fancy. You're already beautiful.
Yeah. And
I think that's a message that I just like want to tell myself as well, because I can feel beautiful depending on the inner game that's going on that day. If I'm, you know, telling myself positive things or doing things to fill up my cup that day, then I notice I could be outside in the backyard with just a hat on, right? And I could feel super confident. Then there's other days where I feel confident with a full face of makeup and, you know, head to toe done up. So it just depends on how I'm feeling and what's going on for me.
And you're not sitting in that self-doubt all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Give yourself that grace.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about, you know, your inner game is about 80%, and then the actions you take are the 20%. So you really need to focus on filling up your own cup and doing things that nourish you, so that you can share that confidence with other women, because our message here is to build you up and to build ourselves up in the same manner, because when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to criticism.
Yeah, which I was kind of nervous about, like doing this. I'm like, what if people are going to be saying mean stuff? But we'll have each other to.
And I think like just letting go of that noise too. Like the older you get, the more willing you are to let go of that noise. But it's still hard to go into a big social situation with a bunch of women for me. That I notice is where I need to like really take some time afterwards, where I have to just be alone. You know, I feel like I pick up that energy, and I feel like I am a little bit empathic. However, that can also be considered a trauma response, because you're constantly reading the room and you're constantly listening so that you can be ahead of anything that's said about you that might be negative. And some people, you know, have big hearts, and often the people who have gone through trauma are the people who are giving so much of themselves, but they don't have boundaries.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that with yourself, like in regards to boundaries?
What do you mean?
Like, have you had a hard time setting boundaries because of a lack of confidence?
Yeah, sorry. I like zoned out there for a minute. And then you came in hot, and I was like, oh, shit.
It's time to pay attention.
The boundaries are extremely hard to set, but they definitely help with your self-esteem and your confidence going up. When you have those boundaries set, it makes you feel a lot more proud of yourself that you were able to accomplish that. Yeah,
I find that like that was a lesson that was really hard for me, because when I go to set a boundary with somebody, so maybe I don't want to do something, before my lack of confidence, I would just say yes, 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 yes to everything. But then I was so overwhelmed and overstimulated that I'd be showing up for my family just like in a really low confidence state. And so when I learned, or am still in the process of it becoming more natural and not feeling so scary, I'm noticing that I'm happier, and in relation, my family's happier.
Yeah. Yeah, you build those relationships. It's hard to begin with. Probably doesn't make everyone happy, but it helps.
Yeah. And I think just like taking that inner knowledge and sharing that with somebody in a way that's positive, like you were saying that you like to hype women up.
Yeah. It's empowering other women.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's wearing a nice shirt, or if they just look nice, you know, it's not a bad thing to go up and just say, hey, I love your hair, or I love your shirt, or, you know, I've had women come up to me. I was wearing this dress. Well, and I don't know, I didn't really feel too confident in it, but I've had a woman come up to me and say, oh, I love that dress. Like it really sits on you well. And so that helps. So making sure you bring that forward and also do that to other women.
Yeah, and
just
then there's
empowering
that ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
I can remember Harlow and I were out to like a little dinner, and we had a milkshake, and so the milkshake was kind of sitting in between us, and we had the two straws, like something out of a little movie. And so here we are sipping, and a mom who is across the restaurant, she actually got up, she walked over, and she asked if she could take a picture for me on my phone, because she said it looks so sweet. And I just thought, you know, like how empowering is that she had the confidence, first of all, to walk across a restaurant, to come, and then to amp us up and to make us feel really good. And that's something that still I remember, right?
And it's memory for Harlow.
Yeah, and she just created this really beautiful memory for us. And had she not done that, I mean, I wouldn't have that picture to look back on. So I just thought that was really special.
Really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, empowering those other women.
Yeah, and I think like our main message today is, you know, you are enough just as you are. We get in our own head, but when it all boils down to it, your unique message, your story, who you are is going to help to empower somebody else. And so we just want to remind you that it is okay to feel a little unbalanced sometimes. And we're here to just support you and love you through that process. And we just hope to see you on our next podcast.